series. Today we'll be doing the first part of the inventory system. So let's begin. First thing we'll do is we'll create a raw image. Make sure to resize it to fit the screen you're going to use. I'm going to use 1920 by 1080. And then also in Canvas, create another UI raw image. And actually before that, we'll call this slot. But for the raw image, first one, let's change the color. Something a bit more gray. Something like that. And for now, I'm going to turn off terrain just so I could see better. And then in slot, we'll have to duplicate it. And then move to the left. Duplicate it, move to the left. You guys could design this however you like. I'm not that good at designing. But yeah, just make 5. Then pick the... Pick the first 5 you've made and duplicate them. And yeah, I think this is how I'll have my inventory system. Let's see how it looks from in-game. Obviously, I'm going to have to switch to 1920 by 1080. And I need to focus the background. Okay, and let me center the slots too. Okay, a bit more to the left. Wrong side. So yeah, perfect. That's exactly how I want it. However, the last row of slots, I'm gonna raise them up a bit. Okay, without that one. I'm gonna get them a bit closer. Okay, that looks good. So now let's rename this to inventory background. And let's get started on the script. So as you've seen here, I created 2 scripts, inventory and slot. Let's begin with inventory. Open it up in your favorite code editor. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna have to define a few variables. We're gonna need a game object called inventory, another game object called slot holder, which we forgot to make but we'll make in a second. Slot holder, a public int for the number of slots we have, and a array of transforms for slots. And we'll name it slot since we already have slots. If you guys don't recognize this, in our beginner tutorial we will be explaining arrays and such. So if you want, you could check that out once it's out. Okay, now in the start, we'll have to do one thing. And that is find the number of slots, basically. And then what we'll say is slots equals slot holder. Make sure you say slot holder, not inventory. Dot transform dot get dot child count, actually not get, dot child count, and that's it. Then under it, slot equals to new transform slots. Again, if you don't recognize the syntax, then make sure to check out our episode on arrays once it releases. Then actually right here we're going to be running a function we'll create later on, detect inventory slots. Okay, now an update, we'll leave that. We'll have to let's make our detect inventory slots function now. So it's going to be a public void detect. Actually, let me just copy this and paste it in there. So what we'll be doing here is a for loop. Again, if you don't know what that is, make sure to check out our beginner tutorial once we speak about that. Okay, so the way it's defined is like this. For, and then you define an int I, which will set to 0. Obviously in different circumstances you'd use it differently. And then we'll say I will put like parameters for it, and it will be less than the slots, which is the number of slots we have as you've previously defined. Then at the end of the loop we'll just add 1 to I. Then what we'll say is slots of I, or actually slot of I, because we defined the array as slot, not slots, equals slot holder dot transform dot get child. Again, we'll say I. And then for now we could just say print, or actually debug dot log slot I dot name. So this could print for us the name of each and every slot to make sure it's working. Okay, that's pretty much it for the inventory. Let's go back. Oops. For the inventory, we'll add it to the player. By the way, rename this to player. And we'll drag in inventory. Okay. Now we'll have to create the slot script. So before that, I'm going to go to the first slot here. And, duplicate it. We'll rename this slot holder. And then we'll get every single slot and drag and drop it into the slot holder. And then minimize it. Now let's edit the slot script. Okay, so first thing we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to inherit from I pointer enter handler, as well as I pointer exit handler. And obviously these are in red because we forgot to say using Unity Engine dot event systems. And obviously now they should work. So first of all, let's define a few variables. What seems to be the issue? Yeah, we haven't used them yet. So anyways, first thing we'll need is a public bool for hovered, so we know when the player is actually hovering over each slot. A private game object named item. Oops. Then a private, this is actually for later, but a private texture called item icon. We'll define it from now, however we won't be using it in this episode. Item icon. Okay, in start we'll set hovered equal to false. We could set that up here, but I just prefer to put it down here. Void update, we don't have anything right now. And we'll define two things. First, public void on pointer enter. This we're inheriting from pointer enter handler. And then we'll say pointer event data, and we'll name it event data. Then in here we'll just say hovered equals to true, and then again we'll define a new function called public void on pointer exit, and then obviously we'll put in a pointer event data and name it event data, and then we'll say hovered equals to false. So what's happening right here is we're saying that if the player hovers over one of the slots, then hovered, which the boolean we'll be using on later on, will be set to true, and the opposite also true. So if the player's pointer exits each box, hover will automatically be set to false. So now that's actually pretty much it for the slots. Let's save and head back in to Unity. For slots, open slot holder, highlight every single one of them, scroll down here and add component the slots. Okay, now we're gonna have to fill in a few things. Go to the player. So now we need the inventory and the slot holder. So slot holder, drag that in. And as for inventory, it's gonna be the canvas. Okay, let's test it out. Okay, in scene. Okay, we're still there. I'm gonna go on slot 0, go down. As you can see, hover is set to false. Now when we hover over it, let me just find it. Does not set to true. Does it have the... Okay, so it's this one.